Brandon Johnson continues to rail against law enforcement, offer tax after tax that are going to burden Chicagoans, and he continues to beat this drum about the ultra-rich paying their fair share. But this isn't about fairness. This is about covering up his failures. Johnson's leadership is driving businesses out of the city, it's reducing confidence, and leaving Chicagoans to foot the bill for his mistakes. The next 2 years are going to be excruciating. It's no big surprise that he only has a 6% approval rating.
The commander of the Border Patrol, you called him barbaric at one point. Bovino said that this anti-police rhetoric is fueling some of this violence against immigration agents. What do you say to that statement by him?
Well, look, when you have armed, masked men sticking long guns in the faces of people across this city, that certainly does not engender confidence with law enforcement. What we've done here locally, we have instituted constitutional policing, repairing trust within the community so that we can actually drive violence down. This is, again, it's not about safety, it's not about immigration. This is really about intimidation.
And as usual, he has to be hyperbolic. Federal agents are not going all over the city putting long guns in the faces of Chicagoans. That's just an outright lie.
In the news this morning, late last night, the Illinois legislature came up with a plan to fund transportation. Republican lawmakers call it a bailout for Chicago. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, our public transportation is second to none. Our ridership has gone up significantly, over 11, 12%, 300 million riders. It's the economic engine of the entire region and the state, quite frankly. And this investment in our public transportation, it's going to protect people's jobs. It's going to make sure that we're fully funding a system that, quite frankly, has been underfunded for a very long time. And so this is a step in the right direction, and we're grateful for all of the hard work that has gone into ensuring that the people of Chicago, the entire region, get to benefit from a world-class public transportation system.
He repeats that statistic over and over again. Ridership is up 11 to 12%, but he completely ignores the fact that ridership is still down when compared to pre-pandemic ridership. And then to say that the CTA is the transportation for the region, what are you talking about? I live in the far southwest suburbs of Chicago. I never use CTA, buses or trains. It's not going to benefit me. And then they're taxing non-riders, they're increasing tolls, they're increasing gas taxes to pay for this. Brandon Johnson should be man enough to look in the camera and tell the people in Chicago the fares need to go up if you want to continue to have access to this system. But he doesn't believe that. All he wants to do is tax the so-called rich.
You're in the process of trying to get this big budget passed. In the meantime, 26 City Council aldermen signed a letter opposing that corporate head tax and a couple of other things. Talk about that corporate head tax. Governor Pritzker's against it. He called it a job killer. What can you say about that?
Well, first of all, this budget is about protecting working people. For too long, our budgets have been balanced off the backs of working people. Garbage fees, property tax increases. I've made a commitment that we're going to challenge the ultra-rich in this city to pay their fair share in taxes. And why is that important? Because we're setting up a community safety fund that's going to ensure that our officers have mental health support services. It's going to fund our domestic violence programs because we have survivors that are still going through a great deal of trauma. We're going to hire, 30,000 plus young people, and we're going to invest in our CVI program, our community violence intervention workers that have been demonstrating that violence goes down significantly when CVI workers are in place. And so this is a part of the ongoing process. We'll continue to negotiate. But as I said before, the people of Chicago want the ultra-rich to pay their fair share in taxes, and that's reasonable.
Once again, he's so disingenuous. You're going to put a head tax on businesses to fund your anti-violence provision initiative. And then you're going to give that money to CVIs, which are just private 501c3s. This is just a way to funnel money to these organizations. And then he says, oh, they're so effective. No, you know what's really effective? What would be really effective is taking the shackles off of the Chicago Police Department so they can go out there and do their jobs and arrest criminals off the street. But again, He doesn't believe in real law enforcement. He's on the record saying law enforcement is a sickness.
But if you're a corporation, why would you not just leave the city?
Well, first of all, we have the most diverse economy in the entire world, right? And our economic vibrancy is second to none. We just had the busiest season in our airports. We've had the highest amount of hotel occupancy in the history of Chicago, 3.5 million people come and hang out in the city of Chicago.
What does that have to do with corporations?
Because we're a business-friendly city. And here's the thing, we're talking about 3%. Right? 3% of our largest corporations, who, by the way, just received the largest tax break in the history of America from Donald Trump. Now, look, safety, affordability, these are things that are important to the people of this city. And if we're going to make sure that we continue to drive violence down, which we've had the fewest amount of homicides, the safest summer in 60 years. Corporations know that the best thing to do to grow business is to have a safe city. This investment is making sure that we continue to double down on our efforts to build a safe city.
You can go and check another video I did. I'm going to put the link to the playlist of videos on Chicago and Brandon Johnson. He always says, oh, it's only going to impact 3% of businesses. What he doesn't tell you is that 3% of businesses represent the largest employers with the most employees. So you notice he didn't answer the question the reporter asked him. Why wouldn't businesses just leave the city? And I think someone on his staff must have told him about my video I did on him, because ordinarily he would say, oh, we were rated by Condé Nast as the best big city 9 years running. He didn't mention that this time because I brought up that Condé Nast is a travel magazine, not a business magazine. So someone's listening, someone's giving him the information, but his ideas are just flawed. Businesses are going to leave, and more importantly, fewer businesses are going to come to Chicago because of this head tax.
The city hired Ernst & Young to lay out some possible cuts that can be made. Where can cuts be made? Because the faucet's got to be turned off at some point.
Yeah, well, we've shrunk government over the past 3 years. So we have 1,800 less people working in government. We had a 3% cut last year on top of a $200 million worth of savings in this budget. Here's the thing, 50% of our corporate fund that people are talking about, it funds community safety. So once you start to cut deeper than what we've already done, it's hard to make those cuts without those cuts going into law enforcement. And with all of the progress that we've made over these last few years, we're on pace, you all, to have the fewest amount of homicides we've seen in 60 years. And if we're going to ensure that we have safe communities, we have to invest in communities. And the people of Chicago have said repeatedly, the ultra rich in this city, in this country, have to put more skin in the game. We cannot balance our budgets off the backs of working people, so that we can educate our young people, we can make sure we're expanding mental health support services, and of course, we're growing our economy.
Just another fabrication. There's no groundswell of individuals who are saying tax the ultra rich. That's just something that he believes, and he cannot wrap his head around the fact that you cannot tax or overtax the very people who are paying the most, and that the people from whom those resources are shoring up the economy as it is. People with the most resources are the most mobile, and he doesn't understand that.
Read in, I think it was the Sun-Times, your job approval rate is about 31%, which is not particularly high. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I don't give much attention to that. I mean, when I was running for office, I think I was polling at 2.2%, and everyone had me losing, right? So listen, the numbers that I pay attention to is the fact that we hired 31,119 young people, that we're on pace to build 10,000 affordable homes in my first term, that literally we've had the fewest amount of homicides, the safest summer in 60 years. Those are the numbers that are most important. Investing in people, challenging the ultra wealthy in this city, in this state, to pay their fair share. Why is that important? We see Donald Trump taking resources away from our public education system. That's why I'm putting forth $500 million into our education system. We see him going after affordability and housing. It's why we have the $1.25 billion bond investment to build more affordable units.
Okay, we see where this is going. We don't need to listen to anymore. We know his playbook. He's always going to deflect and try to bring up Donald Trump. He's going to talk about taxing the ultra rich. And he loves to talk about this program of, oh, we hired 31,000 young people over the summer. Adults need jobs. I've said this in previous videos. When you go into places like North Lawndale and Inglewood and Austin, when you go into these areas, they have upwards of 24% unemployment. What good is it for a teenager to have a summer job when their parents are living in poverty, their parents need jobs? He just doesn't get it. It's so frustrating to listen to this man, but I do it so that you don't have to. That's why I add my commentary, because I think he is the worst. Go ahead, take this opportunity, smash that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit a like. Let's get in the comments section. Brandon Johnson needs to go today. Thanks for hanging out this long. I'll catch you in the next one.